I think I was about 24 years in public safety total between the fire service and emergency medicine. I've had 13 coworkers take their own life. 13. Yeah. It's way too many. And these are people that I work with, people that I know. I've probably had 10 or 12 die prematurely from cardiovascular disease because it's a tough lifestyle, especially working shift work, working thirds, and everybody's got a huge belly and it's tough to get exercise in, and the stress of that job. I've been to 200, 300 suicide calls in my career.
Work to go and earn my pay. Work, put my boots on and lace them up.
All right. Carnivore Soldier coming at you from Austin, Texas. Welcome to another episode of Mission Carnivore. In this episode, we're going to be talking to a firefighter and paramedic. John Wood was a firefighter and paramedic for over 12 years, and he's a carnivore now. And we're going to talk to him, find out his experience of being a first responder and how carnivore has changed his life. And I'm going to bring him in right now and let him introduce himself. And you go, hey, John, how's it going?
I'm doing good, Larry. How you doing tonight?
Good. Okay. Why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, where you're from. Tell us a little bit about your service.
Okay. Well, Larry, I'm glad to be here tonight. Thanks for having me. My name is John Wood. I'm 56 years old. I live just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, kind of in the Concord area. And my time in the first responder service happened as an accident. So I'm what you refer to as an accidental firefighter. When I was 19 years old, I just graduated high school. I had no plans on going to college. School just wasn't my thing. And my mom said, well, you've got two choices. Go live in the streets or get a full-time job and pay us some rent. So I got me a full-time job at a local lumber and building materials company that had opened up, and they were hiring people. So I went there and got a job. Now, at the time, I didn't know a 2x4 from a sheet of plywood. I mean, I was so ignorant to this. But they brought me in and they trained me and they started me out loading trucks. So people would pull in their pickup trucks or their trailers, and I'd put the molding on there, the 2x4s or the plywood, and I began to learn that stuff. And it just kind of came naturally to me that I would say, hey, if you're getting some 2x4s, you need some nails. Don't you think you need a new hammer? And so the powers that be saw that and said, hey, this young guy's, he's got it going on. So they brought me inside, and I became an inside salesman after about just 2 months of working outside. And then I did really well inside. They made me an outside salesman. So I'm 19 years old. I think maybe I was 20 by this time. I have an expense account and a company car, and I'm calling on contractors. So in way over my head. But I was doing pretty well with it. But at that time, once we got going pretty well, the economy really took a nosedive. Back in this is like probably 87, 88. And a lot of the builders went out of business. Houses were left unfinished, and a lot of layoffs happened, kind of like we saw in 2007, 2008, just many years before. So I found myself without a job. Well, at that time, one of the very first home improvement warehouses that opened up, it was called Builder Square. Kind of akin to Home Depot or Lowe's now. It's the same principle. It was owned by the Kmart Corporation. And they were hiring. So I got me a job there. They brought me in as a manager, and I was working in the electrical department, working in the paint department, doing customer service. But then because the economy had fallen so far, even they couldn't make it. So they laid me off. Well, between then and now, I met a young girl who had a kid from her previous marriage. We dated for 6 weeks and did the smart thing and got married. Just joking. So there I have a new wife, a little baby. It was her child from her previous marriage. And I found myself without a job. And because the company had shut down, was laying everybody off. So I ran by my mom's house. My mom and my stepfather always gave me sage advice. So I went by there the day that I got laid off and said, hey, I don't know what to do here. I'm a young guy with a family now, and more people depending on me to feed them. And as luck would have it, my Uncle Stanley, my uncle, my grandmother's youngest brother, happened to be at my mother's house. Now, Stanley had been on the fire department for many, many years. He was a lieutenant in the fire department. And he said, well, John, I hear your situation. You've been laid off. You got this wife. You got a young kid you got to feed. And we have about 3 openings at the fire department. And the mayor owes me a favor because I did some plumbing at his house and didn't charge him anything. So he made a phone call. And I had never even considered working in public safety. I never wanted to be a fireman or a policeman. That was not something I ever aspired to do. But I needed a job. I got 3 mouths to feed now. And so he made a phone call to the mayor. The mayor called the chief. This is on a Thursday. Monday morning at 8 o'clock, I'm a firefighter. I mean, it happened very quickly. And I got in there and did pretty well with it. I've always done pretty well in the books. And I was young and healthy at the time. So they taught me how to load the hoses and drag the hoses and turn on the fire hydrants and stuff. And after about a week, they said, well, you're ready to go. We're going to put you in a company. So, of course, my uncle, being the lieutenant, had pulled some strings, and he brings me to his company. And that's when the education began, because he was so hard on me. But he wanted me to do well. So I did that, and I did it for, I guess, about 10 years or so. I really enjoyed it. Ended up, my first wife and I were only married for about a year and a half. She left me and actually went back to her previous husband, which was fine. And so I was a single guy, met another girl, and we dated and got married. We're still married today. But during that time, I learned to love the fire service. I appreciated the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the adrenaline rush, because when you run into a burning building, if that don't get your adrenaline up, nothing will. And so I kind of became addicted to that and really fell in love with it and did pretty well. Made it into the training division as a lieutenant. And then the local hospital at the time was running the ambulance service. And the demographics of our area began to change pretty dramatically. The local cotton mill closed down, and a lot of jobs went away. The economy was struggling, and the hospital realized that the ambulance service was really not profitable. So they wanted to unload the ambulance service. So a private company from Arizona named Rural Metro came in and bought the ambulance service from the hospital. Well, the first thing they did was cut everybody's pay $3 an hour, and they took away everybody's retirement. So people in the ambulance service were quitting left and right, because at that time, now this is multiple years later, Home Depot and Lowe's had opened up several locations in and around Augusta. Most people that work in public safety either own a lawn care business or they do something on their days off. So a lot of the providers left to go to work in other industries. So they came to the fire department and said, hey, guys, you guys have got to start doing this medical calls. We've seen this program, Rescue 911. And we need you guys to start answering emergency medical calls, because for about 2 years, they had a 100% mortality rate. If you had a heart attack outside the hospital in that part of Georgia, you died. It was 100%, because we only had 6 or 8 ambulances, and they didn't run all the time because staffing issues. So the fire department was pressed into doing emergency medical service very quickly. So they brought instructors in, and they trained us. A lot of the older firefighters weren't really qualified to do that. They didn't want to do it. Their heart wasn't in it. They wanted to put wet stuff on red stuff, put water on the fire. That's what they thought their career would always be. Well, I'm still pretty young. I've still got a wife, a new wife, and 3 kids. Well, with that wife, and so I signed up to go to EMT school, because they promised us $1,000 a year raise if we got our EMT. They had to dangle a carrot out there for us. So I go to EMT school and absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. Top of my class, worked in the field part-time as an EMT on the ambulance on the days that I wasn't on the fire truck, and went back to school for another year, studied my paramedic, got my paramedic license, and got my national certification. Once you get your national certification, you start getting job offers from all over the country. And I've been a NASCAR fan since I was a little boy. I've always been attracted to NASCAR. And Charlotte, North Carolina is the hub of NASCAR. All the drivers, all the teams, everything's based right here. So Charlotte, North Carolina sent me a recruiting packet. And I came up here and applied, and they hired me on the spot. And so I had to tell the wife. I didn't even tell the wife I was coming to do an interview. So I had to go home and tell my wife that we had just bought our first house, that I just accepted a job 200 miles away. Ended up, she stayed behind. She was a school teacher. She stayed behind for a year to get the house ready and sell the house. And I moved in an apartment up here in Charlotte. We made it work. We eventually moved everybody up here, me and my wife and my youngest daughter. And I worked for the city ambulance service, Charlotte, the big city, for about 6 years. And then wanted a slower, a little less chaotic schedule. Went to work at a rural county, Lincoln County, which is west of Charlotte. Worked there for about 5 years. And the problem is, most of my time working there, I found myself working the night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I wasn't in the greatest health to start with, but working that night shift just took its toll on me. I was eating terrible. I'd get off from my shift, run through the drive-thru at Bojangles, get a couple of gravy biscuits and a sweet tea, and then go home and go to bed because I'd been up all night. And started putting on a lot of weight, getting really unhealthy, arthritis in my joints. And finally, the ambulance service in Lincoln County pretty much had to let me go because I was too out of shape and too inflamed to adequately do the job. So they sent me packing, which is what they should have done, because I really was not able to perform the duties that I was being paid to do.
Yeah, and so, it's like Shaun White had the same thing.
Yeah, our stories are so similar, other than I'm a good bit older than him, but a very similar circumstance. And it wasn't something that I did intentionally. I mean, I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't a drug addict. I was just eating terrible food because I didn't know any better. And it really changed my life dramatically for the worse, because I go from a pretty good position with a local government agency to being unemployed with not a lot of warning. They sent me a letter in the mail and said I was terminated. I thought it was a joke. Somebody was teasing me. Come to find out it wasn't a joke. But if somebody was down, I could not get down and put them on a spine board and lift. I couldn't get myself up, much less lift somebody off the ground on a spine board, especially if they were a bigger person like myself. I would drop them, and I did drop them.
How much were you weighing then? And how high are you? How tall are you?
I'm
how much
6'1", and I weighed 325. And the weight, I don't carry weight, was all out in front of me, if that makes sense. And really immobile. I couldn't bend over. If I had to get something off the floor, I'd get on my hands and knees to get something off the floor and then try to get myself back up. Just not the person you would want. If you dialed 911 and I showed up, you'd feel sorry for me. Yeah. So I'm at the time I was 46 years old, 47 years old. I still got a mortgage.
Young. Yeah, pretty young.
I still have a mortgage. I still got a car payment. I still got my wife and my daughter. We still have to. So what do? The only thing I know is public safety. Remember, I went to work in public safety right out of high school. That's all I know. Yeah. So I looked down for retail jobs and realized that I couldn't really do that because my feet would hurt too bad. My feet were inflamed, my knees, my hips. It was just, I didn't want to go on disability. And I knew that might take a couple of years to get that process, and we'd lose our house in the meantime. So I was driving down the interstate and I got behind an 18-wheeler. And it had a sign on the back of the trailer that said, "Now hiring truck drivers, start and pay $50,000, which is about what I made as a paramedic. I said, well, I can sit and I can drive. That's two things I know I can do. So I went to truck driving school. It was a 6-week course, Monday through Saturday. Did well with that. Got hired by a trucking company right out of there. And then I drove an 18-wheeler for about 7 years.
That can't be good for your health either.
Right, exactly. Things just got worse. They didn't get better. They got worse. Yeah. And ended up every year when you drive a tractor trailer, you have to have a physical. The Department of Transportation requires that every driver have a physical. And there's only certain doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs that can do these specific physicals. And they have to be DOT approved. So I go for my physical in 2021. I was actually in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I said, well, it's time for me to go for my physical. So I'm headed back to Charlotte to do my physical, and had a heart attack on the way back.
Oh, wow.
And I managed to, being a paramedic, I knew what was going on. So I started popping aspirin and hauling butt. I didn't want to be, COVID was still going on at the time, and I didn't want to be in Iowa or somewhere out there. My wife be here, no way to get to me. So I just took aspirin and said, if things get bad, I'll pull over and call 911. But I made it back, went to the emergency room as soon as I got back. I was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation with rapid ventricular response. I had a heart rate of about 230, which means not a lot of blood was getting pumped. So they put me right in. They gave me medicine and got my heart slowed down. And so got me taken care of. In the meantime, I had purchased a truck. So I started out as a company driver, as an employee. Okay. After 2 years, I bought my own truck, or was in the process of buying my own truck, and contracted with this company. So I'm self-employed now, and I have this $200,000 truck that I'm buying. And when I go for my physical, I explained to the doctor what happened, and they said, we understand that you're better now. You know, they did what they call cardioversion, where they put me to sleep and shocked me. They did that. It lasted a week. Went back. They did it again. It lasted a day. Went back again. They did an ablation where they go in through your groin and go up there and basically kill off part of your heart and try to settle it down.
Wow.
And they put me on some blood thinners and stuff. So I go and tell the DOT doctor that what's going on. And she goes, well, we need you to wait 6 months before you get back behind the wheel of an 80,000-pound truck with all this going on. Well, I couldn't go 6 months. I had a huge truck payment, insurance payments, and I'm not making any revenue because the truck can't move unless I'm the one driving. So I ended up selling my truck, kind of a fire sale. Fortunately, because of COVID, truck manufacturing had come to a halt. So you could really get top dollar for a used truck because they just were desperate for trucks. So I sold my truck for about $90,000. And that gave me, I still owed $40,000 on it. So I got to keep the $50,000 difference. And that gave me some time to try to figure out what's next. And I took up the sport of golf. My brother had talked me into playing golf with him a couple of times. He lives down in Georgia still. And so I started playing golf and walking and hoping that would get me better, being outside, walking. And it helped a little bit, but not much. And so finally I applied for and got a job at a local home improvement center at Lowe's. I'm just going to say Lowe's. And working part-time there, I liked it, went full-time, but you're on a concrete floor all day long. And my feet were still inflamed, my knees, my hips. And
Right.
I didn't know that I could stay there until retirement age because, every day was just misery, just trying to deal with how bad my feet hurt and my knees especially. And if I had to get down to get something off the floor, get something for a customer trying to get back up, the customer would have to help me up. And just an embarrassing, like, how did I get here? My wife and I, we live in the suburbs, and we've considered selling our house and getting a homestead, get some chickens and get a little more property, get away from the hustle and bustle of the suburbs. And ran across Kerry's video from Homestead How. And we were watching some of his videos, and one of them came on about the carnivore diet, and he was talking about some of the problems that he had and how the diet had really helped him. And I was watching it. My wife said, "I'm not watching this. I'm going to bed." Well, I stayed up and watched it, and I ended up being up all night long doing the deep dive. I watched him.
Yeah.
I found Sean. Then I found Dr. Carey, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker. The entire night I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It sounded like snake oil. It sounded that there's no way. There's no way this can be this simple.
But there's no hook, right? Like, where's the hook? Where are they scamming people?
I didn't have to sign up for a program. There's no credit card required. I didn't have to do anything. So this was like June 20th or 21st. And so the next day I told my wife, I'm going to start this carnivore diet on July 1st. So for 31 days, I'll try it. And if it doesn't work, then nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'll buy some meat. We'll still eat it if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So she rolled her eyes because over the years I've tried low carb, I've tried low fat, I've tried everything. Nothing. I'd lose weight.
I did it fasting, intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting, all that stuff.
Yeah. I used to do 72-hour fast, and I would just be thinking about food the entire 72 hours.
Yeah, terrible.
And you just can't live. You can't live long term like that. Yeah.
And then you binge, right? Yeah, it's not good.
That would be the thing. I would probably put on more weight after the 72 hours because I would eat everything. Yeah. So the wife reluctantly said, okay. So I said July 1st. So I started July 1st full carnivore. I didn't do keto because I had done keto in the past. So I just went beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, pork. I was eating pork. We had a good bit of pork in our freezer. We've got 3 freezers. So I was thawing out some of the pork and eating that. And after a week, my right hip quit hurting. And after about 2 weeks, my left knee quit hurting. My left knee was really the biggest source of pain. And I had some kind of undiagnosed pain in the top of my left foot. I don't think it was gout because I could mash on it. It didn't hurt. But if I put weight on my left foot, it just sent me to the moon. I missed a week of work because it hurt so bad. Probably 15 days into carnivore, all that was gone. I'd lost 10 or 12 pounds from the water, obviously. But the inflammation left so quickly that I realized 21 days in that this was real. This was absolutely positively something that could improve my life. So I continued with it. And so August 1st came, I said, I'm just going to go another month and see what happens. And I'm losing weight hand over fist. I'm sleeping better. And I'm working I work 11-hour shifts at Lowe's. We get an hour for lunch. So basically it's 10 hours on the clock, but you're there for 11 hours. And I noticed about a month into it that at the end of 11 hours, my feet didn't hurt at all. Yeah. And before this diet, I almost had to crawl to my car because my feet were just on fire. And so we're 30 days in and nothing hurts. Nothing hurts. And I'd had some return bouts of that atrial fibrillation between the time I had the ablation back in 2021 and starting the carnivore diet. And about 3 weeks into the carnivore diet, I had a pretty bad episode, but it resolved on its own. And from then to now, I've had nothing. And when I did have the atrial fib, about 3 weeks into the diet, I was doing push-ups, and I probably was straining to get to the 20th one or whatever. And that brought on a bout of AFib, but it resolved on its own after about 5 minutes. But between then and now, I've had zero. And I'm walking.
Did you see on Backward Carnivore, they had that Dr. Tony was talking about AFib and saying it was really linked to inflammation and obesity. And if the inflammation and obesity go away, the AFib pretty much goes away.
Exactly.
Pretty interesting. That's what he was saying anyway. And I was pretty impressed with that.
I didn't see the interview. I did see the thumbnail for it. I am going to go back and watch it. Brian's a friend of mine. I was actually talking to Brian earlier today, and I know he has a similar story with AFib, similar to mine. Yeah. And Wick Goes Carnivore. Yeah. He's a good buddy of mine. So the thing about it is, when I had all this problem, remember I told you I had bought the truck and I was self-employed?
Yeah.
So when I had the 2 cardio versions where they shocked me twice, the first one lasted a week, the second one lasted a day. Then I go in and I have the ablation. I had just bare minimum coverage health insurance. all this stuff happened in a 3-week period. When I started getting bills from all this, now they knew the insurance I had, the local hospital knew the insurance that I had because I'd given them all my insurance information. They'd already contacted my insurance company. No one ever told me what this was going to cost me. I just knew that without it, I'm probably going to die. I was not long in this world. Once I got my health straightened out, I started getting bills from the doctor. I received a bill from the hospital for $266,000.
Wow.
My insurance company paid $10,000. It's $276,000. My insurance company paid $10,000, so I owe over $250,000. Let me point out, I never spent a night in the hospital. I had the ablation. I went in at 6:30 in the morning. At 1:30 that afternoon, they turned me loose. Because of COVID, they didn't want people staying in the hospital if it wasn't absolutely necessary. So I didn't even spend a night in the hospital. And they sent me a bill, the hospital, for over $250,000. And I applied for a hardship case. They granted it to me, and they said, okay, we've knocked it down to, I think it was $100,000. So I still owe $100,000. Then I started getting bills from the cardiologist, the radiologist, the anesthesiologist. So it ended up being $400,000 in bills. And I never even spent the night in the hospital. I was treated and released the same day. And so that just speaks to the power of the carnivore diet. Had I been on this diet before, because I've been paying, I'm still paying, and I'll die owing the hospital money. I will never be able to pay this off. I'm a blue collar guy. And so I need to watch that video that Brian did with that physician and find out about that. I mean,
because they were talking about Brian's AFib, and that's when he said that. He said when the inflammation goes, so you probably never would have had it.
Exactly.
Eaten properly. There's a lot of things I would have avoided. Injuries. I know that I have injuries that are permanent now that won't heal back, but it probably would not have been incurred if I had been on a proper diet where I wasn't inflamed, because I think those injuries were caused by me being in a bad state.
Sure.
And when I had the insult. Let's see. And then as far as your physical health, how has it affected the carnivore diet? How has it actually affected your physical health? What kind of things have you noticed physically?
Well, first and foremost is the pain has gone away. The AFib has gone away. I don't have any pain. I'm 56 years old, and you become used to having pain. Something's going to hurt every day. That's part of aging. That's what we've been told, right? I get out of bed in the morning. I do my day. I work 10 hours on a concrete floor at work. Nothing hurts. Nothing ever hurts. And that's the closest thing to a miracle that I've ever witnessed personally, that I can go through the entire day. For example, today I walked 8 miles today. Sometimes I go to the gym. I walk 6 or 7 miles, go to the gym. I do lunges. I do squats. I do push-ups, things I would do when I was 19 or 20 years old that I haven't really done since then. And I do it now without any pain. And then the next day I'm not sore. So even when I was a young man, if I worked out really hard, the next day you're paying for it. I don't have any of that now. So it's to say that it has absolutely positively transformed my life would be a huge understatement.
Yeah, I'm 57, so I get it. I know the pain. And I thought I was on this downward slope, the downward trajectory. That's my life. This is it. Doesn't get better than this. The only easy day was yesterday. And it's like, now it's completely opposite. It flipped it upside down.
But so before I started this diet, I really struggled to get off the couch. Sometimes the wife would have to help me up off the couch. If I got down on the floor to get something, I'd have to grab hold of a table or something to try to take 10 minutes to get off the floor. And now I can almost do burpees now. You know, I mean, it's And so I didn't tell you this, but I've told others this. I was on Dave Mack's channel. I expressed this, but during that time, especially after I lost my trucking company, I was about as depressed as a human being can be.
Oh yeah.
When we first moved to North Carolina, my youngest daughter was in middle school, and we bought this nice home up here. We're living in the suburbs. So I did the responsible thing, and I took out a life insurance policy. I figured if something happened to me, I want my wife and daughter to continue to live and not struggle, and my daughter to be able to go to college if she so chose. And so I took out a $250,000 life insurance policy 15 years ago, a little over 15 years ago. My daughter has since grown up and moved away. She's on her own. She's fine. And so it's just me and the wife. And I don't want to leave my wife because things are so much more expensive now. It'd be tough for her to live on just one income.
Yeah.
So I thought, if I could just die before the insurance policy expired May 31st. And I was just praying that I would die before May 31st so that she could have the money, she'd be taken care of, and I would be out of the misery and pain that I was in 24/7. Everybody would win. My wife would be taken care of financially, and I would be released from all this pain. And I could not believe when I woke up on June 1st and I was still alive. And that $250,000 policy is defunct now.
Yeah.
And that was where I was at mentally. And now I absolutely positively love life. I love my job. I love my neighborhood. I love my wife. I love breathing. I love everything. And that's a huge transition to go from praying to die to just, I want to live to be 140. I want to live to be 140 years old.
There are studies out, and I've been looking at them, that, and the NIH has them, that show that low cholesterol levels correlate with higher violent suicide rates and depression and mental illness.
Right.
So they've got the whole country on a low fat, cholesterol lowering, high carbohydrate diet. And it's no wonder we have so much excess violence picking up and suicides among, I think basically everyone's had the same stresses in their life that would cause someone to do a suicide. It's always been there. But what's happened is the fulcrum has been pushed to one side by our diet, where people can't handle it as well, and they're quicker to go that route, I think. And that's one of the reasons for this channel, is I really think we need to talk about the mental health. My mental health completely changed. I didn't even know how bad it was. Really, I thought I was still a pretty positive person, and I had a pretty good career, and I liked my life, but I was not optimistic about, like, I was on that downward slope, the downward glide. Now I'm like going upward. I'm planning stuff, and I'm excited about what's coming up the next month, the next year, the next day even. And I wasn't excited like I am now. So I think I'm with you with that, man. You get to that point where you just think that's just the way it is, and it's not.
Right. It doesn't have to be.
No.
The problem is 99% of the population that's minding your demographic, they feel like you felt, like I felt, that yesterday was the best day and it's going to get worse from here. And that, like I know, and all the other folks in the carnivore space know, that is absolutely false.
Yeah.
I probably had I think I was about 24 years in public safety total between the fire service and emergency medicine. I've had 13 coworkers take their own life. 13. Yeah. It's way too many. And these are people that I work with, people that I know. I've probably had 10 or 12 die prematurely from cardiovascular disease, because it's a tough lifestyle, especially working shift work, working thirds, and everybody's got a huge belly, and it's tough to get exercise in, and the stress of that job. I've been to 200, 300 suicide calls in my career. And one thing I will say along your lines of the low cholesterol and low fat diets, one thing I've noticed is I don't want to say pediatric, but people that are 18 years old or less that commit suicide, and I've been to more than anyone should ever have to go to. And it's always horrific, and it sticks with you forever. I've not been to one that wasn't on some type of antipsychotic drug. 100% without exception. Every pediatric suicide or teenage suicide or attempted suicide I've been to is on a cocktail of antipsychotic medicines, which is ironic, because when you watch the commercial on TV, they say side effects may include suicidal thoughts. And what are we doing here? We're drugging these kids up, and they're like zombies, and we wonder why the suicide rate, even before COVID, is where it's at with young people. And that's the huge tragedy.
Well, we're feeding them a diet that's making them depressed and making their mind not work proper. And then we're drugging them. But it's because the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration, and they're funded by those two industries. So they act in the best interest of those two industries. And those two industries want to sell really cheap food, which happens to be the food we're eating on the standard American diet. And then they want to, and it's addictive. And then they want to treat symptoms caused by issues that the food creates. And that's exactly what we have, a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. And I know, so like I said, I've talked about this before. I've lost more friends in the military to suicide than to combat, even during the war years, right? And it's not uncommon for someone who's been in for a long time, that would be the case. And there's got to be something done. And that's why I go out. And you've seen a lot of trauma, like you said. I know you have. And I know how tough it is when you see it daily. You say you get desensitized, but you really don't. You internalize. You don't desensitize. And when you internalize, same thing we do in the military. We talk about sucking it up. We talk about driving on. We talk about the guy next to us doing it, so we're going to do it. And you don't talk about it. And then that's when people talk about the physical weight loss that we had, right? But for me, the mental weight loss was greater. You just can't see it. Right. When it came off my shoulders, that was an amazing feeling. And I know for first responders and military veterans, that's a greater weight than it is for typical civilians, I believe. I haven't been a typical civilian in a long time, but I believe that's the case. And I just know that it makes a bigger difference It did for me anyway. How did you feel about that when you had that lifted off? Did you notice like your motivation, your attitude? Tell me about that stuff.
I've only heard one other carnivore say this, and this is something that speaks to what you're saying. When I was working in EMS, the last 3 years of being on an ambulance, I started having recurring nightmares every night. But it wasn't from calls recently. It was from calls 15 years ago that just resurfaced that I thought I'd forgotten about. And it got to the point where I dreaded going to sleep because I knew one was coming. And that made, so then you're tired, you're sleep deprived, you're anxious, you don't sleep well, every noise you wake up. And after I left the EMS while I was driving a truck, that kind of subsided. It got better, much better. And then I got to where I don't remember dreaming. If I dreamed at all, there was nothing remarkable. But since I've been on carnivore, about a month in, I've started having fantastic dreams every night. As I was telling my wife yesterday, and it's something different. And it's always fun, funny, romantic, exciting. It has something to do with me and her and the kids, or my mom who passed away 5 years ago. She's in my dreams, and she was a nut. She was a lot of fun to be around. And I pretty much without exception now, for probably the last 60 days, I've had just amazing dreams, to the point where I look forward to going to sleep because I want to see what the movie is. And I've only heard I had one person comment on one of my videos saying that they had a similar experience. But so I'm sleeping better. I don't dread going to sleep. I love going to sleep, and I sleep deeper. I have great dreams. And I still wear a CPAP machine. I had sleep apnea. Of course, that was one of the main, everybody has it when you get to that point. And I don't know that I have sleep apnea now, but I'm still using my CPAP machine because ultimately I want to go back to driving an 18-wheeler. That's where my heart is. That's what I want to do. But I have to get my DOT physical straightened out. I just need to go back to a doctor and do that. And because I was diagnosed with sleep apnea in the past, one of the things they will do is look at the data card in my CPAP machine to make sure that I'm still compliant with it. Now, I guess I could go and pay for a sleep study to show that I don't have sleep apnea, and that would negate that. But until that happens, I still use my CPAP machine every night. But it never was cumbersome to me. The first night I used it 15 years ago, I didn't like it. But from then to now, it doesn't bother me. It's almost comforting now to have it on. But so the dreams, that's the thing. So obviously, if you have a great dream, you wake up smiling, wake up in a great mood, that sets the tone for the balance of your day. And I walk around on my toes, on the balls of my feet all day long, just almost on a cloud. When it's starting to fade, the memory's starting to fade of how depressed I was 120 days ago. And hopefully I'll be able to close that door.
When you wake up, what's the difference, like your routine now than it was when you were before carnivore? Like for me, I spring out of bed. Like I don't eat coffee or nothing. I'm just boom, I'm ready to go and hit the ground running. What's your day like when you first wake up? How's it different?
I've always been a morning person, so I've always been able to get up. I usually wake up 5 minutes before my alarm goes off, so not a lot of difference there. But before, when I had all the, I think, plantar fasciitis or whatever, I'd have to sit on the side of the bed and prepare for that pain. Take a deep breath and kind of grunt, and you stood up because your feet would hurt, your back would hurt, your knees would hurt. So all that's gone. So I still am a morning person. I still enjoy getting up early. I just do it without pain now. So that's been the biggest difference, is I can get up and take that first step right off the bat without having to prepare for the pain in my feet and my knees and stuff.
I would get up early like that too, because I've been a morning person. I am a guy that wakes up before his alarm goes off. I usually wake up a half hour before my alarm, and then I go in the bedroom and turn it off later. As I go back in the bedroom, it'll be on.
Sure.
That's just the way I am, and my dog does too, because I feed him about 5:30 in the morning. So I get up around 4:30 or 5, and then I feed him at 5:30. But I've always been like that too. But the difference is I always had to go get my coffee right away, wipe the sleep out of my eyes. I had allergies. Really, I don't know about you. I had really bad allergies all the time. So I would spend 15 or 20 minutes cleaning my allergies out, taking a pill, getting all blown out so that I could start working. That's not the case now. Now I just pop up, I get a glass of water, walk right into the office with Duke, and I start check some YouTube videos, and I answer some people's messages. I do that kind of stuff. And it's completely different for me because my whole morning was getting ready to get going. And then I got going. If I was getting up at 4:30, I would be active by 5, or 5:30. But now I can be active like literally 10 minutes after I get out I go to the bathroom, I get my water, I come right in here, and I'm ready to go. And it's so quick. I'm not making a cup of coffee anymore. I'm not
Right.
taking an allergy pill. Did you have allergies before, or do you still have allergies?
Fortunately, I never did. I've never had any problem with allergies or sinuses. I have a brother that's 17 months older than me, and he, for the love of God, he struggles with it all day, especially during pollen season down in Georgia where he's at. But
he said he's in
fortunately,
Augusta.
Yeah, Augusta.
That's so. I was stationed in Fort Gordon for a while. I was a signal
Yeah,
officer.
so you're familiar.
So I know Augusta pretty well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been out there for several schools.
My mom and dad actually met at Fort Gordon. My dad was stationed there, and my mom was working
Wow.
at the canteen, and that's where they met.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an old base. It's
Yeah.
an old base.
Yeah.
And then my dad used to live out there, but he lived in, gosh, I forget what city it was in. But anyway, he's in Alabama now, but he was out there for quite a while. One of the barrier islands, I think. Yeah, that's cool. I enjoyed it there, and my allergies were bad there too. So I feel for your brother for sure.
Yeah.
And then in Austin's the same thing. Austin's got terrible allergies. So the fact that I don't take pills like I used to, I will take one maybe once a month now if I wake up and have a runny nose or something. But it's really rare where I would do it every day religiously, sometimes twice a day, just depending on the day.
Sure.
So how do you stay motivated? Isn't this a boring diet? And what are you eating in a day? What kind of carnivore diet are you on?
Not really the lion diet, pretty close. Usually during the week, I just have beef and salt and water. But on the weekends, I do like eggs. I eat a lot of eggs, and I like bacon. But I'm still struggling with my blood pressure. My blood pressure's come from, I took it the day I started, July 1st. It was 210 over 106.
Yeah.
And being a paramedic, I know better. But I don't really want to go on blood pressure medicine because the side effects. I was on blood pressure medicine several years ago trying to get it down, and I took 3 different pills, and it only brought it down a little bit, and the side effects were terrible. So I quit taking it, and I just said one day I'm going to pop a vessel or have a heart attack, and this will all be over anyway. But now that I'm on the diet, so I took my blood pressure earlier today. As a matter of fact, it was 148 over 76. So we've gone from 200 over 100 to 150 over 80, basically.
Yeah. That's
so it's
good.
still pretty high. Still too high for me to pass that DOT physical.
Yeah, but
that's
you're
what's
getting there.
keeping me from going and doing that. And but I know if I continue on the way I'm going, that'll get down where it needs to be. But as far as my diet, I do eat pork, and not a lot. I just eat beef, and I know you say it's boring, and people do say it's boring, and I guess on paper it does look boring.
I don't think it's boring. I'm just posing the devil's advocate question, right? I love it.
The thing for me is I wasn't a big steak eater before this. I would prefer just a hamburger versus steak. But since I've really got into this and I've started experimenting with eating a steak that's not super well done, which was kind of always what I did, and backing down to maybe a medium or maybe moving towards the medium. And so it's not so leathery tough. I enjoy it a lot. I heard somebody say on one of the videos recently, I don't remember who it was, maybe Dr. Chafee or somebody, the best seasoning you can put on your food is hunger.
Yeah,
and so I'm pretty much doing OMAD, sometimes 2MAD, but almost OMAD. And so when I eat, I'm hungry, and it's delicious. It's like the first time I've had it. I put a little butter on my steak. I use Redmond's real. So I do use Redmond's, but I also use a little bit of Montreal seasoning, just a little bit. I'm backing down on that. And I usually cook it.
That's actually, I used to use that too, but I saw it had some seed oils or sugars in it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no sugar in it. It's got sunflower seed oil.
Yes, so that's what it was. So I had to get rid of mine because I used to love that.
Yeah.
But salt
I'm using about half what I used to make.
Yeah.
But so far, so good. I'm still back. I'll probably I want to get some of that Redmond's smoked salt.
I've used that.
How is that? Is that pretty good?
It's really strong.
All right.
Use it lightly. I prefer butter and salt just now. That's all I use. And I prefer getting my ribeyes frozen and air frying them frozen. So they're crispy on the outside by the time I'm ready to eat the inside. And just salt and butter, man. But actually, to be honest, I'm more of a burger guy. I eat hamburger every day. And some days that's all I eat.
So what I've started doing, because I work so many hours at work, when I leave home, I usually leave home at 11:30 a.m. and I get home at 11:30 p.m. So my day of work is 12 hours between leaving home and getting home. So what I've started doing, rather than cooking hamburger patties in a frying pan, I just make up some patties. I put this big cookie sheet and I cook them in the oven. Just salt and pepper, put them in the oven. That way I can cook like 6 or 8 at a time. I'll take 2 to work, and then I have 2 for the next day and 2 for the next day. I eat an awful lot. And I watched one of your videos, or you and I had a conversation on the Thursday night thing. You talked about the big rolls you can get at Walmart of the 7327. I started buying those on your recommendation, and that worked out great. Yeah.
It's easy, right? It's just
it's easy. It's cheap, and it's if you get it, like I put it in the freezer and get it almost frozen, then I take it out and I can cut it into patties because it's still round. So then I have perfectly round patties.
Yep.
If it thaws out too much, the knife tends to push it down. But if you get it when it's almost frozen and have a good sharp knife, you can just take and mark it off and just cut the 1/4 inch or 1/3 inch deep patties. And
I just bought one of those 10-pound rolls today. So
That's awesome.
I'm gonna do a video on the way to do affordable BBB&E, which was I was talking about doing 3 10-pound rolls cost you $100, and then 2 60 egg crates or $15 or something. So basically, for $130, you can do BBB&E with salt and with Himalayan pink salt, not the cheap stuff. You can get good salt. So that's just 100% pure salt. So you can actually do it. And I was talking to semi-retired Bob. I don't know if you know him, but he actually lives on a budget. Yeah, he lives on a budget of $120 a month and just eating eggs, beef, and salt. And that's and really no bacon. I used to do a lot of bacon, but I've cut it out of my diet almost completely now. I cook it for my son, and I just don't. It's like now you might. When I was 100 days in, I was still eating bacon, but now that I'm over 200 days in, it's just I'm not interested in anymore, or chicken, or pork at all. Like pork, I'm just not interested. And you may find yourself doing that if your body just starts changing. The first 100 days, you're learning your hunger signals, right? And you're learning your body again because it's actually operating normally. When to go to the bathroom, how it feels when you need to go to the bathroom, all these things that you didn't know because you had this crap flowing through you at a super high pressure, high rate, and you had broken hunger signals. Your digestive system was jacked up, and your toilet time was all jacked up. And then once you get all normalized after 100 days or so, you start realizing, oh wow, this is what normal is. This is the real normal. This is the hunter-gatherer normal. This is the Maasai and the Inuit and these ancestral diet eating people, the Indians that still do in Canada, Aboriginals in Australia. The ones that still eat an ancestral diet have our normal that we have now. So it's really awesome. But
I've gotten away from bacon lately because I told you I've still struggled with my blood pressure. Bacon, even if you get one with no sugar, which I try to look for, it's cured with salt. So it's very salty. And I usually eat 8 to 10 strips of bacon at a time with my eggs.
Wow, that's a lot.
But I've started buying, I bought it last time. I did it, one of my videos, I talk about it. I went to Costco and bought a big thing of pork belly, which is completely uncured. And I brought it home and I slice it and I make my own bacon. I cook it in the oven, 375 for 20 minutes. And I flip it one time and put it back in for about 5 minutes and it crisps up. And so you get that same, the flavor of the fat of the bacon, but without all the salt. And I really, really like that. And you can buy these huge packs of it. I've got 3 freezers, so I got plenty of freezer space. And so I've been making my own. I cut it all up, put it in freezer bags, and then I'll just take one out with 5 or 6 strips in it. And so it's getting rid of a lot of the sodium. And I know we're not supposed to fear sodium, but because my blood pressure is where it's at still, I need to be conscious of that. But I've swapped out bacon for just pork belly. And I, like you, I find myself maybe not craving that quite as much. I still eat a lot of eggs though. Yeah.
I eat occasional hard-boiled eggs and an occasional egg with my son when I have him. Having there this weekend. Now I made breakfast for him today, and I didn't eat eggs. I don't eat breakfast typically. If I do, it's a social thing, so I'll make an egg for myself and a piece of bacon or something and sit down and have breakfast with him. But I'm not really eating with him. I'm just doing the breakfast thing. But a lot of times I won't. I'll just make him breakfast and I'll come to the office and work, and then drop him off at school.
Yeah,
he's 14. He's a carnivore too.
But, so I do feel myself. As I go forward, I feel myself needing less and less variety. I'm so satisfied with just the burgers. Now, what I do like to do is make a fried egg, but over easy. Put it on top of a hamburger and let the yolk kind of spill out on it. Use it almost like a sauce. So I do enjoy that. But I eat more hamburger, probably 5-to-1 hamburger versus everything else combined because it's inexpensive.
What'd you eat today?
Easy. I went to Wendy's today and I ordered a Baconator. A triple.
I get those.
Threw the bone away, and I just had the bacon, the meat, and it had cheese on it. I eat cheese sparingly. I've noticed a lot of people talk about cheese having a histamine thing, and I know it does. So far for me, it hadn't. I can't. If I eat a little cheese, or if I don't feel a difference, but I don't go overboard on it.
Cheese is a condiment, like on a burger, is no big deal. And we had burgers. So tonight I made Wagyu burgers because they sell them here at HEB, which are amazing. You can buy the burger patties pre-made Wagyu, super fatty, right? And they're 70-30, I think, and they taste so good.
Oh wow!
So I made Wagyu burgers on the grill with a couple of hot dogs, 100% beef hot dogs. I know they got nitrates in them. I don't care. I've lost all this weight and I feel great. It doesn't really bother me, and I don't eat a ton of them, but my son likes them. I like them. So we had a hot dog, we had a burger patty, and we had cheese on there. I put some cheddar cheese. Stay away from the American cheese because it has seed oils in it and it's fake. But if I'll do the cheddar, and a little bit of cheese isn't gonna hurt you, I don't think. It depends on the person, like Michaela Peterson does. So I would say you have to figure out if it will hurt you. And the best way to do it is to actually go on a full elimination diet and then reintroduce things one at a time. I did that and I had the best results. I got a stall about 110 days in, and then I was on BBB&E and I cut out everything. I went lion basically, except for I added butter still. So I was lion with butter, and I lost 13 pounds in the next 2 weeks just by doing that after stalling for a month and a half. So, and then I made the mistake of reintroducing multiple things at once. And then I got some pain. I'm like, okay, which one was it? I have no idea. So they have to go back to wean yourself off and go strict again. So right now I'm into a strict thing again, right? Because I'm not sure what caused the pain. And I'm going to reintroduce these things one at a time coming in. Yeah, it's weird, but it's really a great, powerful tool that we have.
But isn't it and disappointing all at the same time that this was in front of you and in front of me and in front of your fellow soldiers and my fellow first responders and just the human beings in general, the West, obviously. This has been right in front of us the whole time. And we fall into the commercials. And I asked my wife the other day, so why do you think they put toys in kids' cereal?
Yeah.
Well, why do they have cartoon characters, colorful cartoon characters, and advertise specifically to children on Saturday morning when we were kids, Saturday morning cartoons? There's a reason they're trying to draw you to that. If you just didn't have any of that, and this way your whole life, all these ailments and maladies would probably never even come into your life ever.
Yep. And they did it with cigarettes when I was a kid. They had the candy cigarettes. Remember those we could buy and look.
Oh yeah, you see those things all the time.
Yeah, and then candy, big chew, like the chewing tobacco. It was actually
Big League Chew or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, I mean, so bad, right? And then they also had cartoons. I think the Flintstones had a smoking commercial where Fred and Barney were taking a smoke break. I remember seeing that online on YouTube. So yeah, they were going after kids. They've been going after kids for a long time. Yeah. So it's not a mystery. All right, we're getting close to the end. We're gonna wrap up with talking about your YouTube channel, and then I'm going to give you the floor. You've got a YouTube channel. I think this is it, right? The Champion Within 9619. Is that right?
So yeah, that's
okay.
It.
Yeah. So this is your YouTube channel, The Champion Within 9619. Right. Tell me why you started a YouTube channel. What have you always wanted to be a YouTuber? Is that what's going on here? Or
I did have a YouTube channel years ago, and so this is an old name because one of the diets I did was the whole eat less, move more thing. When my mom was diagnosed with cancer and we knew that her life was coming to an end, she told me that she always wanted me to lose weight. I want to see you healthy. I don't want to leave the world knowing that you're so unhealthy. So I took that as something I needed to do. And so I went really strict on 1,200 calories a day, 1,300 calories a day, exercising, intermittent fasting, extended fasting. And I dropped 100 pounds in about 7 months. And before my mom died, she saw me get healthy. And so I started this channel because I was really excited, having lost all that weight. I still had arthritis. I still couldn't move. I still was a hot mess when it comes to just mobility and flexibility and stuff. But my mom got to see me. She died. We buried her. And the next day I started putting on weight. I was so hungry. I was so miserable.
Oh, yeah.
So I only had 2 or 3 videos on that channel when obviously I started putting on weight. The day after my mom's funeral, I was putting on weight. And so I deleted all those videos, but I kept the channel. And now that I found this, my hope with my channel is to reach 55 and older. Because I think about it, Larry, if you hadn't found this, you and I were just talking about yesterday was the best day, tomorrow is going to be worse. And we know it doesn't have to be that way. How many people that are in your demographic or my demographic are thinking that this is going to be normal? They're going to be in a wheelchair. They're going to use a walker. They're going to have to use a cane. They're going to be in constant pain. They're going to have to go to the doctor 3 times a week, every week for the rest of their life. And so I really want to try to reach that group of people who are our age, maybe older, who are stuck in the thought that this is as good as it gets. It's going to be worse tomorrow, and show them that there's a better way. I know there's young people out there like Carnivore Kip, and Sean's a good bit younger, and we see Poco, a Moonshine Family, a JT. Yeah. I love seeing these young guys, and even Carrie, pretty young. I love seeing these young guys because they'll never go through what some of the things that you and I have gone through as they age. But I want my channel, and I do my analytics. My biggest group is, I think, 45 to 54, and then it's 65 plus is actually I'm gaining subscribers and viewers in the 65 and over demographic. And that's who I want to reach. I want to reach, my mom was in her 70s when she passed away, and the last 5 years of her life was absolute misery. I see older people come into the store where I work, and they're on a walker. They're having to use the motorized shopping cart because they simply can't stand. They can't do anything. And they're not old. They're in their 60s or maybe early 70s. And we see other examples of people in that age group that are thriving on this diet.
Yep.
So that's where I want my channel to go, is help people age better.
It's so amazing. You had amazing results by torturing yourself and doing all this extra work. And in this diet, you're never hungry. You're never torturing yourself. You're never like obsessed with food. You're never exercising excessively. I walked. That was my exercise when I lost 46 pounds. I introduced a little bit of weightlifting, 40 minutes a week, like 4 10-minute sessions. I did not do. And before this, like when I was in the military and I was in the gym for hours, I was running miles and putting all this work in that I didn't really have to do, apparently, because if I would have had this diet back then, I would have been in awesome shape. Like right now, I'm in better shape than my last 2 years in the military. I guarantee you. And I could probably do my job better now than I could my last 2 years. And I retired in 2019. So I'm talking 2017 to 2019, and I'm in better shape now after just being on this for a couple hundred days.
Yeah.
Can't imagine what it would have been like not having injuries and yeah, our age group going forward, not having injuries, not being weak and frail, not being limited. I see Maggie White, I think it is, on the ranch. Yeah. And she's gone to learn how to sail a boat to go sailing with her husband all around the world at 83. And I'm like, dang, that's pretty cool. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking forward to in my future years. And the other thing is, after Dr. Chafee says, our body's designed to live 120 years biologically. So if you die before you're 120 years old, something killed you, either a car crash or your diet or a disease, but something killed you because you're designed to go to 120. So that means I'm not, you and I, we're not midlife yet. We got a couple of years. And that's exciting.
We're thinking we're in the 9th inning of the baseball game. We're only in the top of the 5th or something.
Yeah, we're not even in the 7th inning stretch, man. We're not even close. So it's pretty exciting. All right. Well, I'm going to give you the floor here, and I'm going to just ask you to tell people, if you were talking to first responders, because you were a first responder, other first responders or people that were first responders, and they said, hey, I'm interested in this, I'd like to start. What advice would you give them? How would you tell them to start? And what things do you tell them to do?
Well, I would tell them to figure out why. What are you looking for? You have to, before you know the how, you need, in my opinion, you need to know the why. Is it because of chronic pain? Is it because of inability to do your job? Is it because your clothes don't fit well? Is it because you're having problems in life in general? What is it that you want to get from this? Because I think if you don't have a strong why, when those temptations come, it's really easy to backslide, really easy, because there's temptations. Every time you go into the convenience store, the grocery store, my wife is not doing carnivore, so there's all kinds of temptations in the house. So I would have them identify, what is it that you're looking for? What do you want your life to look like if you do this and you stick to it? So we nail that down. And I come at it maybe from a drill sergeant standpoint. People want to do the low carb and then ease into keto and then carnivore. That would never work for me. I was July 1, I was carnivore. I was, you either are or you're not. That's just me. And I would say, just do it. It's going to be hell those first 2 weeks. You're going to have some problems in the bathroom. You got to get through it. But if you stretch that out over 6 months, you might not ever get through it. Just do it. What's the Nike thing? Just do it. Yeah. And that would be my advice. And it doesn't work for everybody, but it worked great for me because I struggled through it. I had temptations the first week or so. And now it's just part of my life. And I think if I would have strung it along inch by inch, I never would have got to where I'm at now. I would have backslid too easily. Too many temptations. So I would just advise, just try it for 30 days. Go all in. At the end of 30 days, if it didn't work, then at least you tried. You gave it an ample amount of time. And then I would give them my name and my phone number and my email and say, hey, if you have any questions or you need some advice, you need somebody to help you through this or guide you, I'm available free of charge, especially for first responders. Because that's
you need to find a community, whether it's here or in YouTube or a Facebook page. I have a group. I don't know if you do, but I've got a Facebook page and a group. Yeah, I've got a Discord server where people can come join. And the thing is, and if it's not my group, that's great. There's plenty of other groups out there. Find one that you fit in, you plug in with them. This is the most accepting and helpful community across the board, I think, that you're ever going to find. There is some dogma going on. There are some people that are very religious carnivores that say you can't do carnivore this way because you do this, and just disregard that stuff. Overall, you're going to get good advice and good help if you ask for help when you're starting out. And I really think, so having a community is a big part of it. Having a why. I'm big into the why. It's got to be a big enough why. If your why is losing 18 pounds, it's not big enough because you quit every diet in the past that had that why, and every diet failed. And then the other thing is, like you said, going all in the beginning. That was my way. I'm not a moderator. I'm a binger. And I think most people in our situation probably were bingers.
Exactly.
If you're a moderator, if you're a moderator, maybe you can do it, maybe not. For me, the reason I fell off, I had initial success with every diet I've done initially in the past. Keto worked for a while. Fasting worked for a while, but they all failed because I always slid into, like with keto foods that were actually had sweeteners, and I kept eating sweeteners and drinking Diet Coke, and I always had cravings. This is the first diet I've ever done where the cravings are completely gone. And I don't know about you. Have you cut sweeteners out of you? You did, right? You no sweeteners in your diet?
Yeah. The first month I had a bunch of Diet Coke in one of my refrigerators out in the garage, and I thought I would finish them off, but eventually a couple weeks into it, I just put them in a bag, took them to work, and gave them away. So I got rid of all artificial sweeteners. The only thing I have is I do drink these sparkling waters, and I have a couple of those a day, but it's just water and it's natural flavors.
They have natural flavor. I've done a couple of those. I typically drink flavorless, but that's much less. You're not going to get cravings from that. For me, sweeteners would get me cravings at 6 p.m. every night. I'd be like craving something, and it was terrible. And I would always fail. So this is the first diet that's easy not to fail. It's like sustainable. You're not torturing yourself. It's no big deal. It just works. So
for me, Larry, I don't know about you, but for me, my thought process going through this is, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. I'm not going to deny myself. So I do. And I may have 3 meals a day, and I may go 48 hours without eating because it's my body saying get some nutrients, and I'm going to feed my body. But I've gone multiple times 48 hours without eating, without being hungry. But I've also had 3 meals in one day because I was hungry. It's just intuitive.
That's the thing. You actually do, your hunger signals get repaired. They normalize, and then you can listen to them, and then you can actually never be hungry, because whenever you're hungry, you just eat. Whether it's like when I started, I snacked a lot, but it was all snacks that I had prepped. I'd fry up a pound of bacon every day and put it in the fridge in a bag, and I'd go just snack on bacon or cheese, hard cheese. I'd cut cheese in cubes, and I'd snack on some of that, or salami. But I would always try to be a carnivore snack. I would never snack on anything. I threw away everything that didn't have that stuff, the wheat and the sugar, and I got rid of sweeteners. And after 2 weeks, I snacked a little less, and I was on 3 meals plus snack all day when I started. After 4 weeks, I was on 2 or 3 meals, because I sometimes would skip breakfast, and then I snacked a little less. By the time I was 8 weeks, snacking was almost gone, and I was on 1 or 2 meals a day. And then after that, now I'm just 1 or 2 meals a day. I rarely snack. If I do, I might get a slice of butter or something. But I mean, it's no big deal, right? It's not like I'm sitting there eating a bag of something, or so it's an amazing transformation in your body. And it is learning your body. You have to become the subject matter expert of your body, and you have to learn all the signals again.
True. Right.
Man, it's been a great talk. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up. But John, where can they get a hold of you besides your YouTube channel? You have an email address, and you have any other social media you want to share?
Just my YouTube. I'll read all the comments on YouTube. They can reach out to me. I just joined Sean's online group. I'll join yours once we get off here. Okay. I didn't realize you have one, but I'll join your Facebook group. To drive it home, this community has been as much of a blessing as the diet is, and the way of life, and all the crap being gone out of my life. The community, the welcoming, the love, and the support, and all the good things about the community has been just unbelievably amazing. I had no idea that this community would wrap me up in their arms like I've tried to wrap everybody else up. It's just amazing, the support that that we all give one another, and we need more of that in this world.
That's true. It's really a positive vibe and a fun place to be. And the people are, because I really think that's like we were talking about, everyone's really motivated and positive attitude because we're eating a proper diet and our brains are working. I can't imagine how this country would be if everyone was eating like this. What difference it could make, right?
Yeah.
I really think it would be amazing. And it's really sad that we're on this diet that's actually damaging our psyche in mass. And yeah, so all I can say is, you can tell the difference when you go from a carnivore to a non-carnivore community immediately. You can tell the difference.
Oh, yeah.
All right, John, I'm going to drop you off. I'm going to say goodbye. Stick around a minute. We'll talk afterwards, okay?
Okay, thanks.
All right, guys, that was a great talk. John's a fantastic carnivore, and super happy to have him on the channel to share as another first responder. All I got to say, guys, is stay strong and overcome. Carnivore Soldier out.